A man who has met and worked alongside major world leaders, sat across from a pope, presidents, prime ministers, and diplomats from more than 60 countries. How does one person build relationships across political divides, ideologies, faiths, and borders, and do it successfully for decades? You're listening to The Ambassador's Room by the Center for Jewish Impact. I'm Mickey Dubry, your host, and thank you for joining me as we explore what happens when we bring leaders out of their embassies and into the studio. For our first episode, we wanted to begin with the person behind the vision for these conversations. Born in Ukraine and immigrating to Israel at the age of 15, our guest went on to dedicate decades of his life to diplomacy, public leadership, and global Jewish affairs. From serving in the Israeli Defense Force and working within Israeli public life to leading some of the world's most prominent organizations, now serving as the chairman for Center for Jewish Impact, we are honored to welcome Mr. Robert Singer to the studio. Mr. Singer, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming. I know this is a first for the podcast, but let's dive right into it. Given your track record in the international arena, I feel like it's safe to say you're sort of an ambassador for the globe. You've seen the inner workings of some of the most complex, large-scale nonprofits, philanthropies, government sectors, and inner diplomatic circles, making your perspective extremely unique for this conversation. Why do you think there's a need for a forum like this, where ambassadors can share their perspectives in a more open and podcast-style setting like we're doing now?
We have in Israel about 4,000 diplomats and people working for international organizations, and to a large extent, the position or the opinion of people in many countries is seen through their eyes. They serve in this country 3 to 4 years. Usually, the diplomats that come to Israel are among the best in the foreign services of different countries. These people are with us during the wars. They are visiting places. They are meeting people. They are obviously briefed by many government officials, and they report back home, both to media and to their professional officers. So, from this perspective, they actually are not only ambassadors of their countries to Israel, but they also are ambassadors to outside world.
We go to many events on behalf of the Center for Jewish Impact, and something we're constantly noticing is the exchange of physical business cards in a world that's turning into a very technological sphere. So I think it's kind of an interesting take to bring a podcast to the diplomatic scene. Do you think ambassadors will feel a certain way to kind of step out of that? I don't want to call it old-fashioned, but the old-fashioned sense of diplomacy by stepping into a more modern technological forum like this to share their opinions and their feelings on their lives in Israel as diplomats?
We tested the water with a few ambassadors. We saw the ambassador, for example, of Estonia, which is one of the youngest ambassadors here in the country. He definitely comes from this kind of environment. And for somebody like himself, for example, to have an opportunity to speak to Israelis through this kind of media is something which comes without saying. So I don't expect any issues here. But at the same time, we have to understand that diplomacy is still working on a few levels. And the time that really social media is becoming one of the important tools for them to deliver their messages or the policies of their countries, still, most of the important things are done in the private conversations behind closed doors between people. And when you mentioned the business cards, it's not by mistake that they are still holding them, because it's the first point of contact. They come to our events, to many events. So at the end of the day, they leave the room with a pack of business cards. And I see how it develops. We had a few days ago a diplomatic salon with the embassy of Panama here in Israel, dealing with the maritime and the situation with Hormuz now and things of this kind. So I saw how many cards were exchanged. And it didn't come only from the ambassadors. It came out most high-tech companies here in Israel. So I think this will remain in many, many ways. And in many ways, we're also going back out of technology to also things in a traditional matter. So I think that we should work on a few levels. And this is one of them. The idea of these posts is really to give ambassadors to speak not about their official job, which they do all the time, but to speak also about themselves. Because at the end of the day, it's a personality behind each title.
Yeah, they're people too. Ambassadors are people too. So speaking of course, ambassadors, you meet them constantly, like you mentioned in our recent diplomatic salon with the Embassy of Panama and in many other formal and not formal settings. What do you think that many ambassadors here in Israel experience once they actually arrive in this very chaotic, up and down environment?
So one of the challenges is that they are coming to be here 2 to 4 years, and it's too short time.
Mm,
So when they arrive here, especially in the situation like we have today, and we meet many ambassadors that arrive here for the first year, it takes them about a year just to understand what's going on and who is playing what game. And I would say that the first year, especially now, they're in shock. They don't understand exactly what is happening here. It's very difficult for them to understand that at the times that the war is going on and our villages, kibbutzim, and the
of
north are being
course.
under the attack, the restaurants in Tel Aviv are full. Yesterday I was at the reception of the Austrian embassy with the play of Stefan Zweig and
Hmm.
Abima. And the room was packed. And the day before it was really 12 hours war with Iran, another war with
Exactly.
Iran, and
Exactly.
nobody would even think that the next day people will come to Abima.
And no one even really talks about it the day after anymore. We're so used to it almost in a sense.
This is another thing that it's difficult for people from outside to understand the resilience of people here. They cannot understand how, in this situation, the country is still going on, how the shekel is almost 25% stronger to dollar, how almost on a weekly basis we have exits here with different high-tech companies, how the academic institutions, the number of students enrolling for the next year, despite the war, and
For
despite so
sure.
many people being in reserve duty, the number of students is skyrocketing. So for outsider, it's pretty difficult to understand.
You've been in this field, like I mentioned earlier, for quite some time now. What were things like in terms of channel of communication with the ambassadors before something like the Center for Jewish Impact existed versus now?
The Center for Jewish Impact is a new organization. It exists only 5 years.
Hmm.
But in 5 years, I think it took a very important niche here in Israel and in everything that is dealing with the public diplomacy. And the main thing is really to create and to establish a solid and B, intimate relations with different embassies and to give them the opportunity and the feeling that there is somebody there. So we are trying to represent on one hand, the public, the civil society here in Israel and the public opinion. On the other hand, to give them contact
Hmm.
to all these organizations, to the diplomatic community. So as of now, we have, I would say, almost intimate relations with over 80 embassies here. We have a number of things that the Center for Jewish Empire is doing, which create a really direct relations between the civil society and the diplomatic community. It gives them an access to a lot of information that is provided to them. And the whole idea came from a visit here, the only visit here of the Secretary General of the United Nations,
Hmm.
Guterres, in 2017. When he asked me personally to arrange for him a meeting with people who are coming from different parts of the Israeli society and different parts of the political spectrum here. And these days he was very positive towards Israel
Sure.
in 2017. And it was a big hope that things will go different way. But what we saw at this meeting, that the opportunity to speak directly to people from different parts of the Israeli society is critical. And we see it with all the ambassadors here.
What is the most common change you see in ambassadors and diplomats, moreover, from the time that they join their post in Israel versus the time that they leave?
I think that from what I see, that most of them leave this country with the love to this country.
Mm,
So I think despite the official positions that they are bringing with them and the party lines that they have to deliver here, I think at the end of the day, in 3 to 4 years, they meet real people. Many of them are coming, by the way, for the second time. They
yeah.
serve here as on the junior positions at the beginning of their career, and suddenly they're coming now as ambassadors. So I think that on this side, we Israelis, and I'm not relating to government offices, but
Yeah.
we Israelis are doing a good job. They see us in restaurants, they see us on the streets, they see us on the shows, and I think that after 3 to 4 years, they get to know us better, and most of them are living with a very positive thinking about Israel.
100%. Getting a little bit more into your career and your leadership, um, everything that we've spoken about so far is so dynamic and sometimes could be much more, I guess I'd use the word stressful than a typical 9 to 5. So after decades of international leadership, what still motivates you to come to the studio today and to come as a chairman to the center every day and do this work and stay in this field?
No, for me, it's there is only one motivation to it. I have 7 grandchildren, and I think about not the country that I lived in now, but I'm really thinking about what's going to happen here 10, 20, 30 years from now. And it's clear to me that one of these is really where Israel fits on the global stage.
Mhm.
And so each one of us is to do what we can do in different fields. This podcast is being hosted in one of the schools of another organization that I'm a chairman that deals with unprivileged kids, or kids with different kind of disabilities.
Mhm.
So, which in my opinion is the weakest link in the strengths of the Israeli society. So I'm dealing also with this. But at the same time, you have to do things that really you can make a difference. So the same way we are dealing with the weakest link, we also have to deal with the positioning of Israel on the global stage, and that's why the Center for Jewish Impact was created. And I'm very glad to have many people involved in
Yeah.
this organization at the top level. Both senior officials in the Israeli government in the past, but also a very young and dynamic team members like yourself, like
Oh, thank you.
some other people working for the center, and I think it's really critical.
What was a defining moment in your career that really made you understand, okay, I have to think long term and not short term. I have to think, why am I staying here? And I want to know if there was like something that comes to your mind.
Yeah. No, in May 1987, I was asked by the Prime Minister's office and the Foreign Minister then to go to Moscow to
Mhm.
evaluate what is the situation with the Soviet Jewry. 1987, it still was the Soviet Union and the communist regimes there.
Mhm.
And but the feeling here within the certain organizations responsible for this issue here in Israel was that the big change is about to come.
And it
So
did.
yeah, but remember, it was 1987.
Yes.
1987, it really was a completely different situation. It's still beginning of Gorbachev era, and it was the Soviet Union. So
Mhm.
it's not the whole country run by the Communist Party, the KGB, and all these institutions. So while in Moscow, it was clear to us that the changes are going to happen. And when we came back and met with the Prime Minister, then with the Foreign Minister Shimon Peres and Yitzhak Shamir, we told them that more than 1 million Jews are going to arrive to Israel, and people thought that we were kind of crazy. We were a small delegation of people that went there, some of us undercover, and came back. But in reality, that's what happened, and it changed the state of Israel completely.
Completely.
In cases like this, you can see really that team of people sometimes can make a big difference. And if you want to be part of something big, so you kind of jump on this boat.
Amazing. Just for our listeners who maybe have never been to Israel or don't understand Israeli society to understand, in Tel Aviv and on most beaches here, we have announcements from the lifeguard towers. Maybe back in the past, it used to be just in Hebrew and Arabic. Now it's Hebrew, Arabic, Russian, then French, then English. So the impact that small delegation made is huge and is standing till today.
Yeah, no, it's not only impact of the small delegations, actually people who are in the underground movement there that made things happen, but we obviously help them in this context. But yeah, listen, this country was a country of 650,000 people only less than 80 years ago. We're 10.2 million people now, and it's unprecedented on any
scale,
on any level or in any. It's impossible to even to understand.
We're going to have a little speed round of questions to wrap up our time together. They're going to be very easy, I promise. But we're just going to go for it and say the first thing that comes to mind, okay? One word to describe Israel.
Miracle.
Coffee meeting or formal diplomatic dinner?
A coffee meeting.
Why?
It's personal.
Okay. Favorite word in another language, and what does it mean?
Uh, Nadezhda, it's in Russian, it means hope.
Nice. A place in Israel every diplomat should visit.
Tel Aviv.
Nice. I agree. Most underrated thing about Israelis?
Our determination to live in this country and to live in prosperity as Jews and as members of the liberal community.
100%. One food all diplomats must try when they're in Israel.
I guess it's easy. It's falafel.
Okay. Good answer. One word that comes to mind when describing the future of diplomacy.
Will stay the same. I don't think big changes are going to happen in. And journalists thinking, I think that in many ways we're going to go back to basics, and basics is the basic diplomacy.
Okay. And does that make you hopeful?
Makes me always hopeful if good people will do it. So it will depend on that. It will depend on the quality of people.
Well, let's see. Mr. Singer, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
This series is about bringing diplomacy into a more human space, exploring not only policy and international relations, but the personal experiences behind them. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time to The Ambassador's Room.